What's up, everyone? This is Tom, aka Headhunter Higgins. In this video, I want to talk about a wrestler from history, James H. McLaughlin, or Colonel J. H. McLaughlin, as he was known, because he reached the rank of colonel during the Civil War. He was born in 1844 in New York. He grew to be pretty big for his time, 6'1", and depending on what type of shape he kept himself in, between 215 and 260 pounds. He started wrestling when he was only 15 years old, winning his first match and becoming pretty successful and well-known. Eventually, the Civil War broke out, and he was part of the Union in the North, where he reached the rank of colonel. He was actively wrestling throughout his time in the Civil War, where he was undefeated and won dozens of championships and was even getting other soldiers to wrestle to develop their character and their hand-to-hand combat. By the time he was out of the Civil War, he decided to just full-time keep taking wrestling matches and going to the professional circuits, competing in catch wrestling and his specialty, collar and elbow. So he was a very strong guy, usually bigger and stronger than most of his opponents, so much so that 4 people are alleged to have died as a result of wrestling McLaughlin, that he either used his insane strength to kill them with some sort of neck crank or submission that killed or maimed them, or later that they died as a result of serious injuries. McLaughlin was always remorseful and donated his winnings to the families of his opponents. He was actually the highest paid athlete of his time and the most richest celebrity athlete of the time when you adjust inflation for the money he made from betting and titles. So with killing his opponents, he decided to stop doing catch wrestling, the more rough and brutal style of wrestling, and instead focus on collar and elbow, where there's just tripping and throws and whatnot. Standing skills, which is where he excelled. And he eventually made his way into a tournament with a title belt, which was regarded as the American or the World Collar and Elbow Championship in 1870, with a large cash prize and a diamond-studded gold belt, where he faced Barney Smith in the final, and he was winning quite easily, defeating him and throwing him 5 times to what should have been declared the victory. But apparently the referee was being biased and wasn't giving him the win. So as a sign of protest, McLaughlin grabbed Smith and threw him literally over his head into the crowd. There was no wrestling rings back then, so they would just wrestle on a large platform. And when he threw Smith off, he landed on his head and neck, killing him. Or some say he didn't die, that he just received serious brain damage, and the next day or two he was found walking around the streets in his underwear in the rain looking for McLaughlin. So he lived out the rest of his days in an asylum, or other reports say he died shortly after. But once again, McLaughlin donated the earnings to Smith's wife out of remorse. He was quoted as saying, "I forgot that I was so wicked strong," about the incident. Later, McLaughlin had a ankle injury which caused him to retire and become a railroad worker instead. But like most combat sports retirements, it didn't last very long. So McLaughlin eventually returned to wrestling once his ankle felt that it had healed up. In 1878, he was lured out of retirement for a match with another notable champion, John McMahon, no relation to the McMahons of the WWE, but McMahon was a badass in his own right, and he had to have been if he was looking to challenge McLaughlin. Even though McLaughlin was just coming off of a retirement, this is a man who was extremely strong and was even lethal in the ring. Him and McMahon actually had a trilogy. McMahon won the first, McLaughlin won the second, and then the third went so long that the local curfew actually had to call a stop to the match, and it was declared a draw. The public loved these type of matches. This was the ultimate sporting spectacle of its time. Other notable champions that squared off with McLaughlin are Homer Lane, Henry Moses DeFure, who also exchanged wins and losses with McLaughlin, and McLaughlin eventually relinquished his collar and elbow title to Henry Moses DeFure. And by the end of McLaughlin's career, mixed-style wrestling matches were becoming the norm, where it would be a round of catch wrestling, a round of Greco-Roman, a round of backhold, a round of collar and elbow, multiple styles to determine the winner. And in his final match, around the age of 60, he faced off against another wrestling legend who I've taken a lot of influence from. A lot of people know about him, Martin Farmer Burns. So all these guys were just badass. They all had super awesome mustaches, as you can see. And I plan to make videos about more of these legends of the past of wrestling that people might not really know about. But in order to keep up with those, you'll have to subscribe to the channel, like and comment on this video, and help me grow this channel. I'll see you in the next one.